And now, the survival show that once survived fishing with dynamite in an above-ground pool. In this episode, our guest lays out the importance of intelligence gathering, whether shit hits the fan or not. With some of these techniques, you may know what's going on before it even hits the news. Sam Culper of Forward Observer magazine lays it all out for us. Howdy, and welcome to In the Rabbit Hole's Urban Survival Podcast. This is episode number 171. I'm your host, Aaron, and you are in the rabbit hole. Safe and sound. A quick note before we dive into this episode. My voice is failing me. So you are going to get what was meant to be 2 ITRH book club episodes this week. But I think you'll find that while really Sam and I are talking about his book, there is so much more information in it. It's almost like more of a regular episode. So I think it kind of works. Anyway, with that, enjoy the episode. Sam, welcome to In the Rabbit Hole.
Hey, thank you for having me, Aaron. I appreciate it. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, so you're the founder of Forward Observer and SHTF Intelligence, also known as Shit Hit the Fan Intelligence. But before we dive into your book and your website, let's get to know you a little bit better, Sam. Who are you and what do you do and why do you do it?
Sure. Well, from 2004 to 2012, I was an Army intelligence analyst and contract intelligence analyst. And I spent 3 years in Iraq and Afghanistan. And in the middle of my second tour, it was 2008, 2009. So the whole election was going on. And I stumbled on this guy named Ron Paul. And he started talking about how monetary crises lead to financial crises and financial crises lead to war. And so from there, I just kind of got dropped into the, the prepper and SHTF frying pan. I got turned on to Alex Jones, and I really scared myself to death listening to Alex Jones.
That'll do it.
This was all, this was all at the time when I was an intelligence analyst in Baghdad, and so I would spend my shift was from midnight to the afternoon, and so in the afternoon when I got my stuff done and the shift change happened, I would read up on Survival Blog and Alex Jones and Ron Paul and all these things. And it just kind of got me turned on to where, holy crap, like this is a huge paradigm shift for this country. Mm-hmm. And of course, at the time, the military, there was quite a bit of support for Ron Paul in the military. So, I was always trying to, find out the Ron Paul fans. And I got back and I just really got into the prepper mindset, and I started trying to, get my parents and my family on board. And of course, everyone thought I was crazy. And about 2 years ago, the light finally switched on with my dad, and he was like, "How have I not seen this? Like, how's this stuff going on? How is everybody not, storing up food and water and supplies and guns and ammo in their basements?" And so, in 2012, I left my job. I was a contractor, an intelligence contractor, and I said, look, there's a skill called intelligence. Preppers need intelligence for security. And so I could easily just start teaching and talking about intelligence. And so that's how I got into this community and where I am today.
That is a journey. So if you had to give an elevator pitch for SHTF Intelligence, what is it? An Intelligence Analyst Guide to Community Security, what would it be?
In an SHTF scenario, we all are going to run into one of two problems. Either number one, we're not going to have enough information to make well-informed, time-sensitive decisions. Or two, we're going to have way too much information. We're going to be drowning in information, and that's going to slow down our decision-making process. So through intelligence, what I talk about in the book, we essentially solve both of those problems before we encounter them. To solve the first problem of not having enough information, I talk about intelligence collection and how to get it automated. I talk about human intelligence and imagery and open source and signals intelligence. all the things that we need to set up now so that we can begin getting these threat intelligence streams coming into, well, what we call the ACE in the Army, the ACE, the analysis and control element. That's our intelligence element for our community. So setting up those information gathering mechanisms now to solve the first problem. And the second problem is that we might have too much information. And so I talk about analysis and how we separate the wheat from the chaff, how we coordinate, potentially massive amounts of information, make it relevant, ensure that it's timely, and how we take information and produce intelligence. And then the last part of the book is about how to set up an intelligence element, the roles and the tasks and the responsibilities, what everyone does, so that at 0 hour, we know, okay, this is it. Like Fred Sanford used to say, oh, this is the big one, Elizabeth. Okay, so 0 hour, we set up our ACE. Here's what everybody does. And this is how we fill this gigantic blind spot when it comes to threat intelligence.
Man, it sounds like a hefty thing to have written. How long did that take you to write that?
I'd been teaching this 3-day class called the Intelligence Collection and Analysis course. And so I had a lot of the information. And of course, at that point, I was only a couple of years removed from being a full-time Intel analyst. And so a lot of it was still fresh from my mind. I'd taken lots of notes. And so I just took the course and put it into a book format. It's about 200 pages long, the book is. And, I wrote it over such a long period of time, I actually can't even give you an estimate, but I would say it probably took me about 6 months to think everything through, because the way the Army does things is not always the best way to do things in general. Mm-hmm. And it certainly does not apply to the civilian side, to the preparedness side. So essentially what I had to do is take this Army intelligence doctrine and translate it to make it applicable and usable and consumable by the average prepper.
Okay, man, that's a feat. So now you say that for preparedness and community security, Americans should be focusing on producing threat intelligence and generating early warning, which I think I'm totally with you there. This is brilliant. Let's start with threat intelligence. What do you mean by that?
I encounter folks in class and I ask them what their threats are. And they say, well, we have some, little teenage gang, and we have some property crimes, just, or maybe meth heads that will break into a car and steal stuff. And just having a general idea of the threats in your neighborhood really goes a long way. When we were in Iraq and Afghanistan, one of the major problems we had in intelligence is that our adversaries, most of them were anonymous. There would be a bomb that went off, or there would be direct fire attack somewhere, or small arms fire attack, and maybe we would never catch them. And so these guys were running around and we had no clue where they were. We had no clue who they were. We had no clue. In general, we could say this attack was probably related to Jaish al-Mahdi, or probably perpetrated by members of this specific insurgent or extremist group. And so we're going to have much the same problem here, is that we're dealing with anonymous criminals, what we call the irregular threat. Mobs, gangs, looters, individual criminals. And so what I want to do is take this kind of anomalous idea of, yes, we have crime in the area. Yes, we have gangs in the area, and begin separating those and classifying those different types of threats. And once we have them classified, or once we have them named or identified, then we can begin breaking them down further. How many people do they have in this gang? Where are they? What are what we call TTPs, tactics, techniques, and procedures? What's the police say the MO, modus operandi? If there's an event, a crime, how can we take this very limited information from a crime that happened last night and attribute it to a gang based off the way the gang does the things that they do? And so, it really can be a very long, drawn-out process. But what I want to get across to people, and I'm sure you've covered it on this podcast, and it's been covered in lots of other places too, when we have to essentially be either law enforcement or our community security team, we can't be reactive. We can't just say, oh, there's a crime in progress. We have to go there and stop the crime. It's much better to expect these crimes ahead of time, or to, once we show up and there's a firefight, to know how many people we're going to encounter in this battlefield now. And that's something that only intelligence can do. That's just a very brief overview of threat intelligence and the kinds of information we need to be gathering. Because I tell you what, if we're at our bug out location or retreat location and there are gangs around, whether they're established gangs like MS-13 or Bloods or Crips or whatever, or ad hoc gangs, which is a group of neighbors who say, look, we have to get together and we have to go find food for our families. And essentially, now you have this gang. Well, if I'm going on patrol, I definitely want to know how many of them there are, what kind of weapons they have, what kind of vehicles they have, how do we identify these people beforehand? And so those are all things that intelligence can provide.
Sam, let's take a quick break for this message. Listeners, this episode, like all episodes, is brought to you by listeners just like you. Visit itrh.net to find out about the benefits membership gets you for as little as $2.50 a month. Things such as an invitation to the secret ITRH Armada Facebook group so you can chat with myself and other listeners all day long. A free copy of the book Owning Your Survival, 9 Steps for Surviving Survival and Preparedness. Access to our famous Bob and Emergency Kits video class with special checklists. And that's just a few. There's a whole lot more. Find out all about it at itrh.net. Do it today. Again, itrh.net. Help keep the show safe and sound that helps keep you safe and sound. Now, back to Sam. An interesting example of that was during the Ferguson riots in 2014. You set up and ran Operation Urban Charger to track the riots, which is fascinating. Can you tell us a bit about that and why it matters to preparedness?
So during the Ferguson riots in 2014, another intelligence analyst and myself, we called for some volunteers, and it was either 6 or 8 volunteers. We got on an encrypted, that's a whole nother story, but we got in this encrypted chat room essentially, and we started building this ACE, the analysis and control element. And as the ACE chief, I said, okay, you are responsible for this. You need to go get this information. Here's our list of intelligence requirements. You 2 or 3 people, start combing through news reporting and try to find this information. And so we had this intelligence element set up, and we looked through social media posts like Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. And the great thing about what we had at the time was, and even still today, tweets and some Instagram posts and even some Facebook posts have geotags in them. Okay, so when someone uploads a picture to Twitter from their cell phone in the middle of the street on West Florissant Avenue, we can go back, we can take that geo coordinate and plot it on a map.
Slick.
And so social media is extremely valuable. People just oftentimes don't understand the value of that. And then a police scanner. Guys, you can go to Radio Shack or somewhere and buy a $20 police scanner, and all of a sudden you have a much better idea of what's going on in your community outside, beyond your line of vision. And we took news and other open source reporting. And what we were able to do is, I'll give you a very specific example.
Okay.
It was about 90 minutes before the verdict was, or not the verdict, but before the decision to charge the officer or not was going to come out. Well, about 90 minutes before, we hear Warfighter 33, which was the call sign of the National Guard, the TOC, their Tactical Operations Center. And it was set up in the parking lot of a Target shopping center. And so Warfighter 33 started essentially telling units to go to these static staging locations. And that was our first early warning. We said, look, we have 90 minutes till this no true bill comes out. Right now, Warfighter 33 is telling all his National Guard and police officers to set up around town. Well, that for us, to me specifically, that was a pretty good early warning that a no true bill was going to come out. So now we had 90 minutes to call all our volunteers to kind of, get on our stations and begin work. And from there, like a Squad 106, or there are these 2 TAC teams, Tango 2 and Tango 3, whenever they would report their location, we would go back on a map, and that's called battle tracking. So whenever we got their location, we would put it on their map, and we were able to track the locations generally of the rioters by tracking the police who were responding to the riots.
Oh, okay.
And that's Operation Urban Charger in a nutshell.
It's a really slick system. So I tell me a little bit more about it.
You may be familiar with the ham radio. There's probably a lot of ham radio operators in your audience. Direction finding antennas are extremely valuable, especially to what's called signals intelligence. And, with a DF direction finding, with the DF array set up, we could have really pinpointed a lot of these police vehicles because, sometimes they wouldn't report their location. That's something that I would highly recommend if you live in what we might call a high operational tempo area, where there may be lots of law enforcement activity. Getting a good DF antenna array set up is probably going to be pretty valuable, especially if you live in a county or a city where first responders and emergency services radio transmissions are encrypted. So even though you don't know what they're saying, they still emit a signal so they can still be pinpointed. That's something that I would highly recommend. And it also turned out that, we were pretty consistently about 10 to 15 minutes ahead of what we saw on Fox News or what we saw on CNN. And by the way, all of this work is cataloged. It's in the back of the book, so you can get a minute-by-minute update of what was said on the radio. And we also have some maps and stuff in SHTF intelligence, so you can understand battle tracking and how it works and basically how to take individual pieces and put the puzzle together yourselves.
That's pretty cool. And I guess there's two things from that. One is kind of a sidebar, which would be how many of the PDs are actually starting to encrypt their communications?
That's a great question. I have anecdotal evidence that the county right next to me has encrypted. I recommend this. Of course, I have no financial interest in this, but it's a police scanner. It's a little pricey, but it's called a Uniden Home Patrol.
Okay.
There's a Home Patrol and a Home Patrol 2. And one thing I really like about it is, first of all, all you have to do is punch in your zip code, and it automatically draws in these radio frequencies. So we don't have to go through and program these frequencies, and it can just scan a limited number of frequencies, so we're not spread out all over the place trying to monitor lots of frequencies that aren't being used by law enforcement. The other thing I really like about it is based on the transmitter, it will tell you, like for me, where I used to live, it would tell me which precinct of the city that transmitter belonged to. And so I could look at a precinct map and get a pretty good idea just in general of where this police officer was transmitting from if I didn't catch the location where he was.
Oh, that's pretty slick. But and I guess to go back to it, what the original question, how do you think there's like maybe 50%, or is this becoming like a more common thing that they're encrypting their communications?
Yeah, I can't give you a number, but yes, that is a trend among law enforcement, because more and more they're realizing that, someone's robbing a bank and they're listening to a police scanner, so they can identify where police units are and avoid those locations.
Okay. And you were mentioning physical units. Are any of the apps, like the iPhone apps and Android apps, are any of those any good, or is it really more? Do the physical units that you mentioned have a real advantage?
Yeah, I did. I bought one of those 99-cent like iPhone apps that scans, and yeah, it's good. I mean, it's mobile. I would say one of the downsides is battery life. And also, if I need to use my phone, then I can't also listen to the scanner. So, I can't make a phone call and report as I'm listening.
That's an extremely good point. You mentioned early warning intelligence. Can you explain how preppers can develop an early warning for when shit hits the fan, or zombies, or zombie platypus apocalypse, whatever? How can they go about that?
Yeah, those platypuses or platypi are really bad. So we start with this is the plural platypi or platypuses?
I don't know. I need to look that up. That's a really good question.
Well, I'm just going to guess.
Okay.
So the platypus invasion, that's basically our starting point. In the military, we use backwards planning a lot. We use it to establish chronology. So I'll give you an example. This is a real world example, and Army and Marine Corps guys are probably going to laugh at this, but you have a 6 a.m. 06 formation, battalion formation. And so you have a 0530 company formation, and you have a 05 platoon formation. And all of a sudden, you're waking up at 2 o'clock in the morning, to meet all these time hacks so that everyone can go to this 6 o'clock formation. And that's kind of just it's an example of backwards planning, but it's really budgeting a lot of time in there. So we start with the end event and we say, okay, the platypus invasion. Well, what caused that platypus invasion to occur? And then what caused that to occur? In intelligence analysis, we call that root cause analysis. Engineers sometimes call it Y3 or Y5. Here's a real world example. China is selling missiles to Iran. Why? Because China wants to establish a foothold in the Middle East or the Far East. They want to diminish U.S. influence. They want to diminish U.S. power in the Middle East. Why do they want to do that? Well, because they want to slowly degrade the influence of the U.S. globally. And so they're doing that in South America, they're doing that in Africa, they're doing that in the Middle East. And so we take this one instance and we tie it back into a much larger strategic theme of diminishing U.S. influence. So what we want to do with early warning is say there's a stock market crash. Well, what are a few things that we would expect to occur before a stock market crash occurred? Fluctuations, massive outflows of very wealthy people who would actually have early warning of a stock market crash. What are some things that we would begin looking for? This would never happen, but let's say that Russia was going to invade Alaska. Okay, this is just very obvious. What are some things we'd be looking for before Russia invaded? Well, the accumulation or consolidation of munitions and armament and soldiers on their border, probably in the insertion of Russian special forces to do battlefield shaping operations before the invasion actually began. And so we can go back, maybe an increased budget or some modification to the Russian budget that allows for this additional spending. So that's just an example of early warning. I'll give you another great example.
Okay.
A weather alert. And all those models for hurricanes, I heard you a previous podcast, heard you talking about hurricanes. All those models are examples of early warning.
That makes sense. If somebody was to go out and get your book tomorrow and start studying it and getting things together, how long would it be before you think they would be proficient and kind of up the layperson with no analyst's background, be up to speed with what your book is about?
Well, that's a great question. One thing I found is that prior service guys, folks who've already been in the military, who already kind of understand this stuff, pick this stuff up much more easily. Also, former law enforcement or current law enforcement guys who understand this process do too. I teach a 2-day class, and we do a pretty good job of in 2 days teaching the basics of intelligence so that when students leave, they can go back home, they can build their ACEs and know exactly what to do at 0 hour, or if they've produced some kind of early warning, okay, we have in the next 12 hours, we think things could get bad. So in 12 hours, here are all the things we need to get going. We do that in 2 days. If you bought the book, let's just say it takes you a month to read, and maybe even longer because there are some exercises. At the end of every chapter, there's kind of a to-do list. Here are the things that you learned in this chapter. Here's what you need to do now. And I would say probably a month of part-time. You get home after work, you read for 30 minutes or an hour, you do some exercises. And I'd probably say about a month for folks to really get a good idea of the intelligence tasks that they need to begin doing in their area.
That's not too bad. I think that's pretty manageable and approachable, especially considering how some prepper projects are very long. So now for the super random, oddly tricky, patent pending ITRH author questions. Number one, what is the best $100 you've ever spent on preparedness?
That's a great question. Well, it was probably a police scanner, honestly, because law enforcement, they're the first to know, they're the first to be called, or generally they're among the first to know and among the first to be called. Just being able to listen to what they say and listen to how they respond and listen to what's going on in my neighborhood is probably the best $100 I've ever spent, because I get a baseline. All right. Every Friday night I can expect, 2 to 3, calls about drunken people. I can expect one property crime to be reported, or per week, or that baseline is extremely important for me to know. So absolutely, that's the best $100 I've ever spent.
Many of us have a pet thing that we prep for. What's yours? What keeps you staring off into the distance and stroking your chin in concern?
Right now, there's a list of what the global community, what the UN calls advanced economies, and I think over the next 5 to 10 years and beyond, there's going to be a list of formerly advanced economies, and so probably living in Central American conditions where there's disruptions to public services, high increase in crime, corruption among public officials and law enforcement. Those are the things that keep me up at night. And I would really say, for all the talk of EMP and nuclear war and all this other stuff, that's probably my top scenario that keeps me stroking my chin and figuring out, okay, what can we do in this community to prevent that from happening to us?
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's a good one. So, and I think we may have already kind of hinted at this question, but here goes. What's your prepper pet peeve? Something that people do or say or think in the community that you're just like, that just drives me crazy. I wish that would stop.
Probably all the stuff with the Russian troops. I go to North Carolina from time to time and do these classes in East Tennessee too. And there's the Smoky Mountain National Park there. It's probably once a month. I get an email about this Russian battalion that's hiding out in Sevierville, Tennessee. And these people are absolutely convinced that there are Russian troops in Smoky Mountains National Park.
Okay.
And so when we think about a Russian battalion, even a Russian company, let's just start with 100 guys. You got to house 100 guys. You got to feed them. You have to have all these logistics. The next question is, what are they doing there? I guess my number one pet peeve is a lack of critical thinking. Seeing something on Facebook or seeing something on a forum and just flying off the hinges without saying, is that even feasible? Like, is that possible?
That's a good one. So next up, what is your go-to rifle?
Oh, yeah. So a few years ago, when I was still a contractor and could afford it, I ponied up the dough and I bought a LaRue Tactical Predator in 5.56.
Nice.
And that's a sweet stick. Does everything I need it to and more. I'm not going to go out and buy some $5,000, 50 caliber BMG because I just don't need one. My mission doesn't really call for that. So I got the LaRue rifle. It's going to do everything I need it to.
Good deal. What should readers expect from you in the future? Are you going to release more books, or are you pretty much focused on the book you have and teaching the courses?
Well, what's next for us at Forward Observer is one problem we run into is that a couple people in Southern Illinois want a class, and it's just not economically feasible for them to pay me to come out or for me to spend money to go out there. So what we're trying to do is get some training, some basic training online. And so this month we're going to be talking about real world scenarios for developing early warning intelligence. The examples I gave you for EWI, early warning intelligence indicators, weren't that great, but they're just very basic examples. But in this video series, we're going to be talking about how to develop stuff for your community that's relevant to you, that's locale or region specific.
Very cool. When how far out of a project is that?
We're going to have those videos up on the website by the end of this month. We're going to record the videos and get all the handouts and worksheets developed, and then we'll have that up on the website at the end of this month.
Very cool, man. As we mentioned a little bit ago, you founded Forward Observer a couple of years ago. You also do what you call open source intelligence. Can you tell us a little bit about both of those things? What is open source intelligence, and tell us more about Forward Observer and what you're doing over there?
So Forward Observer, our website can be found at readfomag, readfomag.com. We used to publish a quarterly magazine. We're a group of former special operations and intelligence soldiers, and our mission was to take these, the soft skills. We didn't do a lot of tactical stuff, because that's covered, by a lot of people. Yeah. But what we want to do is take some of the softer skills along with medical and a little bit of home defense stuff and begin teaching that through this magazine. And what we found was we couldn't be timely with the magazine. And so what we're doing now, at the beginning of this year, we changed over, is we do weekly intelligence reporting, and that's primarily based off open source. 80 to 90% of all intelligence information in the world is open source. We talked about social media and doing link analysis and following these riots based off of tweets and Instagram and videos. Well, that's all open source. It's out there. It's available for us. We just have to go find it. And so when we talk about MS-13, or we talk about the Bloods and the Crips or whatever gangs or other threats in our area, there's information out on the web. We really just have to go collect these puzzle pieces and put it together. And so that's one of the things that we do in the book and in all my classes. I recommend a 60-30-10 split. A lot of people want to get focused on very global or strategic when they really should be spending their time investigating what's going on in their own communities. Because at the end of the day, what's going on in Western Russia is not going to affect you as much as what's going on the western part of the town you live in. So I say 60% focus on your specific community, 30% of your time spend on the county or maybe up to the region or state level, and spend 10% of your time on the national or strategic level. Because ultimately, it's a game of proximity. Farther out it gets from you geographically, the less relevant it is to you. One example I give is whatever causes this SHTF or whatever causes grid down or whatever you're preparing for, the cause is not going to be as important as how it affects your community. And that's another thing that only intelligence can do for you, is reduce your uncertainty and describe the effects of these events. So what we do at Forward Observer is to alleviate some of the time, because we're all under time constraints, to alleviate time for our subscribers. We follow the national and global trends. And so, we're looking at the Russian military and we're looking at China, the Chinese military, and not just the likelihood of if we're going to get into a war, but how is it going to affect you? If we get into a war with Russia, we should probably be expecting some kind of disruption at home because they have very advanced cyber capabilities. They can't stand up to us in a 100% force-on-force fight. They really can't stand up to us if we're committed to a war. So they're going to have to resort to asymmetric means, essentially make the pain so unbearable at home that we don't want to fight on their front doorstep. And that's going to affect all of us. And so those are some of the things that we track for our subscribers.
Okay. And so again, you are the author of SHTF, Intelligence and Intelligence Analyst Guide to Community Security. Tell us again, how do people connect with you, follow what you're doing, and even find out about the classes you're teaching?
You can go to my website, which is readfomag.com. That's readfomag.com. On the right-hand side, we have our calendar of events. So every time we schedule a new class, it's going to be posted up there. You can click on the subscribe button and it will tell you about all the things that we do. And as a matter of fact, Aaron, if you're okay with it, we can do a promo code for In the Rabbit Hole listeners.
Sure, that'd be great. We'll
do a 10% discount if anyone wants to buy the book. Use promo code ITRH. So In the Rabbit Hole, ITRH, and that'll be applied to your cart. And from there, some of our articles are free, and really pretty valuable. If anyone has any questions also, you can reach me through the contact tab on our website. If you have any questions about intelligence or about how to set up an intelligence element or anything else, I'm happy to help out. This is what I do. This is my full-time job, helping communities and helping preparedness-oriented individuals get more prepared to face the threats, because I want these people to be the remnants, basically the last people standing, when in F America all goes to HE double hockey sticks.
Well, Sam, I want to thank you for joining us today and sharing all your information, and hopefully listeners will check out your stuff, and maybe we'll have you on again soon to dive even deeper into intelligence.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. And yeah, if there's anything I can do for you, help you out, don't hesitate to let me know.
Awesome. The coupon, show notes, links, resources, and other stuff for this episode can be found by visiting intherabbithole.com/E171. Listeners, this episode, like all episodes, is brought to you by listeners just like you. Visit itrh.net to find out about the benefits membership gets you for as little as $2.50 a month. Things such as an invitation to the secret ITRH Armada Facebook group so you can chat with myself and other listeners all day long. A free copy of the book Owning Your Survival, 9 Steps for Surviving Survival and Preparedness. Access to our famous Bob and Emergency Kits video class with special checklists. And that's just a few. There's a whole lot more. Find out all about it at itrh.net. Do it today. Again, itrh.net. Help keep this show safe and sound that helps keep you safe and sound. With that, we wrap up episode number 171. From the Lone Star State. Till next time, stay safe and sound.